Part II, Chapter 11b of the History of the Devil. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The History of the Devil by Daniel Defoe, Part II, Chapter 11b. The magic lantern is an optic machine, by the means of which are represented on a wall in the dark many phantasms and terrible appearances, but no devil in all this, only that they are taken for the effects of magic by those that are not acquainted with the secret. All this is done by the help of several little painted pieces of glass, only so and so situated, placed in certain oppositions to one another, and painted with different figures, the most formidable being placed foremost, and such as are most capable of terrifying the spectators, and by this all the figures may be represented upon the opposite wall in the largest size. I cannot but take notice that this very piece of optic delusion seems too much akin to the mock possessions and infernal accomplishments which most of the possessionists of this age pretend to, so that they are most of them mere phantasms and appearances, and no more. Nor is the spirit of divination, the magic, the necromancing, and other arts which were called diabolical, found to be of any use in modern practice, at least in these parts of the world. But the devil seems to do most of his work himself, and by shorter methods, for he has so complete an influence among those that he now lists in his service, that he brings all the common affairs of mankind into a narrower compass in his management, with a dexterity particular to himself, and by which he carries on his interests silently and surely, much more to the detriment of virtue and good government, and consequently much more to his satisfaction than ever he did before. There is a kind of magic or sorcery, or what else you may please to call it, which, though unknown to us, is yet, it seems, still very much encouraged by the devil. But this is a great way off, and in countries where the politer instruments which he finds here are not to be had, namely among the Indians of North America, this is called pawawing, and they have their divines, which they call pawas, or witches, who use strange gestures, distortions, horrid smokes, burnings, and scents, and several such things which the sorcerers and witches in ancient times are said to use in casting nativities, in philters, and in determining, or as they pretended, directing the fate of persons, by burning such and such herbs and roots, such as hellebore, wormwood, storax, devilwort, mandrake, nightshade, and abundance more, such which are called noxious plants, or the product of noxious plants, also melting such and such minerals, gums, and poisonous things, and by several hellish mutterings and markings over them, the like do these pawas, and the devil is pleased, it seems, or is permitted to fall in with these things, and, as some people think, appears often to them for their assistance upon those occasions. But be that as it will, he is eased of all that trouble here. He can pawa here himself without their aid, and having laid them all aside, he negotiates much of his business without ambassadors. He is his own plenipotentiary, for he finds man so easy to come at, and so easy when he is come at, that he stands in no need of secret emissaries, or at least not so much as he used to do. Upon the whole, as the world, within the compass of a few past years, is advanced in all kinds of knowledge and arts, and every useful branch of what they knew before improved, and innumerable useful parts of knowledge which were concealed before are discovered, why should we think the devil alone should stand at a stay, has taken no steps to his farther accomplishment, and made no useful discoveries in his way, that he alone should stand at a stay, and be just the same unimproved devil that he was before? No, no, as the world is improved every day, and every age is grown wiser and wiser than their fathers, so no doubt he has bestirred himself too, in order to an increase of knowledge and discovery, and that he finds every day a nearer way to go to work with mankind than he had before. Besides, as men in general seem to have altered their manner, and that they move in a higher and more exalted sphere, especially as to vice and virtue, so the devil may have been obliged to change his measures, and alter his way of working, particularly those things which would take in former times, and which a stupid age would come easily into, won't go down with us now. As the taste of vice and virtue alters, the devil is forced to bait his hook with new compositions. The very thing called temptation is altered in its nature, and that which served to delude our ancestors, whose gross conceptions of things caused them to be manageable with less art, will not do now. The case is quite altered. In some things, perhaps, as I hinted above, we come into crime with ease, and may be led by a finger, but when we come to a more refined way of sinning, which our ancestors never understood, other and more refined politics must be made use of, and the devil has been put upon many useful projects and inventions, to make many new discoveries and experiments to carry on his affairs. And to speak impartially, he is strangely improved either in knowledge or experiment within these few years. He has found out a great many new inventions to shorten his own labour and carry on his business in the world currently, which he never was master of before, or at least we never knew he was. No wonder then that he has changed hands too, and that he has left of paw-pawing in these parts of the world, that we don't find our houses disturbed as they used to be, and the stools and chairs walking about out of one room into another, as formerly, that children don't vomit crooked pins and rusty stub-nails as of old, the air is not full of noises, nor the churchyard full of hobgoblins, ghosts don't walk about in winding sheets, and the good old scolding wives visit and plague their husbands after they are dead, as they did when they were alive. The age is grown too wise to be agitated by these dull scarecrow things, which their forefathers were tickled with. Satan has been obliged to lay by his puppet shows and his tumblers. Those things are grown stale. His Morris dancing devils, his mountebanking and quacking, won't do now. Those things, as they may be supposed to be very troublesome to him, and but that he has servants enough would be chargeable to, are now of no great use in the new management of his affairs. In a word, men are too much devils themselves, in the sense that I have called them so, to be frighted with such little low-prized appearances as these. They are better acquainted with the old archangel than so, and they seem to tell him they must be treated after another manner, and that then, as they are good-natured and tractable, he may deal with them upon better terms. Hence the devil goes to work with mankind a much shorter way, for instead of the art of wheedling and whining, together with the laborious part of tricking and sharping, hurrying and driving, frighting and terrifying, all which the devil was put to the trouble of before, in short, he acts the grand manner, as the architects call it. I don't know whether our Freemasons may understand the word, and therefore I may hereafter explain it, as it is to be diabolically as well as mathematically understood. At present my meaning is, he acts with them immediately and personally by a magnificent transformation, making them mere devils to themselves upon all needful occasions, and devils to one another too, whenever he, Satan, has need of their service. This way of embarking mankind in the devil's particular engagement is really very modern, and though the devil himself may have been long acquainted with the method, and as I have heard began to practise it towards the close of the Roman Empire, when men began to act upon very polite principles and were capable of the most refined wickedness, and afterwards with some popes, who likewise were a kind of church devils, such as Satan himself could hardly expect to find in the world, yet I do not find that he was ever able to bring it into practice, at least not so universally as he does now. But now the case is altered, and men being generally more expert in wickedness than they were formerly, they suffer the smaller alteration of the species in being transmigrated. In a word, they turn into devils, with no trouble at all hardly, either to the devil or to themselves. This particular would want much the less explanation could I obtain a license from Sir Hellebore Wormwood, Bart, or from my Lord Thwartover, Baron of Scoundrel Hall in the kingdom of Ireland, to write the true history of their own conduct, and how early, and above all how easily, they commenced devils, without the least impeachment of their characters, as wise men, and without any diminution of that part of their denomination which established them for fools. How many mad fellows appear among us every day in the critical juncture of their transmigration, just when they have so much of the man left as to be known by their names, and enough of the devil taken up to settle their characters. This easiness of the devil's access to these people, and the great convenience it is to him in his general business, is a proof to me that he has no more occasion of diviners, magicians, sorcerers, and whatever else we please to call those people who were formerly so great with him. For what occasion has he to employ devils and wizards to confound mankind, when he has arrived to such a perfection of art as to bring men, at least in these parts of the world, to do it all themselves? Upon this account we do not find any of the old sorcerers and diviners, magicians, or witches appear among us. Not that the devil might not be as well able to employ such people as formerly, and qualify them for the employment too, but that really there is no need of them hereabout, the devil having a shorter way, and mankind being much more easily possessed. Not the old herd of swine were sooner agitated, though there was full 2,000 of them together. Nature has opened the door, and the devil has egress and regress at pleasure, so that witches and diviners are quite out of the question. Nor let any man be alarmed at this alteration in the case as it stands between mankind and the devil, and think the devil, having gained so much ground, may in time by encroachment come to a general possession of the whole race, and so we should all come to be devils incarnate. I say, let us not be alarmed, for Satan does not get these advantages by encroachment, but by his infernal power or art. No, not at all, but 'tis the man himself does it by his indolence and negligence on one hand, and his complaisance to the devil on the other, and both ways he, as it were, opens the door to him, beckons him with his very hand to come in, and the devil has nothing to do but enter and take possession. Now if it be so, and man is so frank to him, you know the devil is no fool not to take the advantage when 'tis offered him, and therefore 'tis no wonder if the consequences which I have been just now naming follow. But let no man be discouraged by this from reaffirming his natural and religious powers, and venturing to shut the devil out, for the case is plain, he may be shut out. The soul is a strong castle, and has a good garrison placed within to defend it. If the garrison behave well and do their duty, it is impregnable, and the cowardly devil must raise his siege and be gone. Nay, he must fly, or as we call it, make his escape, lest he be laid by the heels, that is, lest his weakness be exposed, and all his lurking, lying in wait, ambuscade tricks. This part would bear a great enlargement, but I have not room to be witty upon him, so you must take it in the gross. The devil lies at Bly Bush, as our country people call it, to watch your coming out of your hold, and if you happen to go abroad unarmed, he seizes upon and masters you with ease. Unarmed, you'll say, what arms should I take? What fence against a flail? What weapons can a man take to fight the devil? I could tell you what to fight him with, and what you might fright him with, for the devil is to be frighted with several things besides holy water, but 'tis too serious for you, and you'll tell me I am a preaching and a canting, and the like, so I must let the devil manage you rather than displease you with talking scripture and religion. Well, but may not the devil be fought with some of his own weapons? Is there no dealing with him in a way of human nature? This would require a long answer, and some philosophy might be acted, or at least imitated, and some magic, perhaps, for they tells us there are spells to draw away even the devil himself, as in some places they nail horseshoes upon the threshold of the door to keep him out, in other places old pieces of flint with so many holes and so many corners, and the like. But I must answer in the negative. I don't know what Satan might be scared at in those days, but he is either grown cunninger since, or bolder, for he values none of those things now. I question much whether he would value St. Dunstan and his red-hot tongs, if he was to meet him now, or St. Francis, or any of the saints, no, not the host itself in full procession. And therefore, though you don't care I should preach, yet in short, if you are afraid he should charge upon you and attack you, if you won't make use of those scripture weapons I should have mentioned, and which you may hear of if you inquire at Ephesians 6:16, you must look for better where you think you can find them. But to go on with my work, the devil, I say, is not to be feared with mawkins, nor does he employ his old instruments, but does much of his work himself without instruments. And yet I must enter a caveat here too, against being misunderstood in my saying the devil stands in no need of agents, for when I speak so, I am to be taken in a limited sense. I don't say he needs them nowhere, but only that he does not need them in those polite parts of the world which I have been speaking of, and perhaps not much here, but in many remote countries 'tis otherwise still. The Indians of America are particularly said to have witches among them, as well in those countries where the Spaniards and the English and other nations have planted themselves, as amongst those where the European nations seldom come. For example, the people of Canada, that is, of the countries under the French government of Quebec, the Eskimo, and other northern climates, have magicians, wizards, and witches, who they call pelotas or pelotoas. These pretend they speak intimately and familiarly with the devil, and receive from him the knowledge of things to come. All which, by the way, I take to be little more than this, that these fellows, being a little more cunning than the rest, think that by pretending to something more than human, they shall make the stronger impressions on the ignorant people, as Mohammed amused the world with his pigeon, using it to pick peas out of his ear, and persuaded the people it brought him superior revelations and inspirations from paradise. Thus these pilotoas, gaining an opinion among the people, behaved like so many mountebanks of hell, pretending to understand dark things, cure diseases, practise surgery, physic, and necromancy altogether. I will not say, but Satan may pick out such tools to work with, and I believe does in those parts, but I think he has found a nearer way to the wood with us, and that is sufficient to my present purpose. Some would persuade me the devil had a great hand in the late religious breaches in France among the clergy, viz., about the Pope's constitution unigenitus, and that he made a fair attempt to set the Pope and the Gallican Church together by the ears, for they were all just upon the point of breaking out into a church war, that for aught we knew might have gone farther than the devil himself cared it should. Now I am of the quite contrary opinion. I believe the devil really did not make the breach, but rather healed it, for fear it should have gone so far among them as to have set them all in a flame, and have opened the door to the return of the Huguenots again, which it was in fair way to have done. But be it one way or t'other, the historical part seems to be a little against me, for 'tis certain the devil both wanted and made use of legions of agents, as well human as infernal, visible and invisible, in that great and important affair, and we cannot doubt but he has innumerable instruments still at work about it. Like as in Poland, I make no question but the devil has thousands of his banditti at work at this time, and in another country not far from it, perhaps, preparing matters for the next general diet, taking care to prevent giving any relaxation to the Protestants, and to justify the moderate executions at Thorn, to excite a nation to quarrel with everybody who are able to fight with nobody, to erect the apostate race of S_y upon a throne which they have no title to, and turn an elective throne into an hereditary in favour of popery. I might anticipate all your objections by granting the busy devil at this time employing all his agents and instruments, for I never told you they were idle and useless, in striving to inflame the Christian world, and bring a new war to overspread Europe. I might perhaps point out to you some of the measures he takes, the provocatives which his state physicians administer to the courts and counsellors of princes, to foment and ferment the spirits and members of nations, kingdoms, empires, and states in the world, in order to bring these glorious ends of blood and war to pass. For you cannot think but he that knows so much of the devil's affairs as to write his history must know something of all these matters more than those that do not know so much as he. But all this is remote to the present case, for this is no impeachment of Satan's new methods with mankind in this part of the world, and in his private and separate capacity. All this only signifies that in his more general and national affairs the devil acts still by his old methods, and when he is to seduce or embroil nations, he, like other conquerors, subdues them by armies, employs mighty squadrons of devils, and sends out strong detachments with generals and generalissimos to lead them, some to one part of the world, some to another, some to influence one nation, some to manage and direct another, according as business presents and his occasions require, that his affairs may be carried on currently and to his satisfaction. If it were not thus, but that the devil, by his new and exquisite management, of which I have said so much, had brought mankind in general to be the agents of their own mischiefs, and that the world were so at his beck that he need but command them to go and fight, declare war, raise armies, destroy cities, kingdoms, countries, and people, the world would be a field of blood indeed, and all things would run into confusion presently. But this is not the case at all. Heaven has not let go the government of the creation to his subdued enemy the devil. That would overturn the whole system of God, and give Satan more power than ever he was or will be vested with. When therefore I speak of a few forward wretches in our day, who are so warm in their wickedness that they anticipate the devil, save him the trouble to tempt, turn devils to themselves, and gallop hellward faster than he drives, I speak of them as single persons, and acting in their own personal and private capacity. But when I speak of nations and kingdoms, there the devil is obliged to go on in the old road, and act by stratagem, by his proper machinery, and to make use of all his arts and all his agents, just as he has done in all ages, from the beginning of his politic government to this day. And if it was not thus too, what would become of all his numberless legions, of which all ages have heard so much, and all parts of the world have had so much fatal experience? They would seem to be quite out of employment, and be rendered useless in the world of spirits, where it is to be supposed they reside. Not the devil himself could find any business for them, which, by the way, to busy and mischievous spirits as they are, would be a hell to them, even before their time. They would be, as it were, doomed to a state of inactivity, which we may suppose was one part of their expulsion from blessedness and the creation of man, or as they were for the surprising interval between the destruction of mankind by the deluge and Noah's coming out of the ark, when indeed they might be said to have nothing at all to do. But this is not Satan's case, and therefore let me tell you too, that you may not think I treat the case with more levity than I really do, and that I am sure I intend to do. Though it is too true that our modern and modish sinners have arrived to more exquisite ways of being wicked than their fathers, and really seem, as I have said, to need no devil to tempt them, nay, that they do Satan's work for him, as to others also, and make themselves devils to their neighbours, tempting others to crime even faster than the devil desires them, running before they are sent, and going of the devil's errands gratis, by which means Satan's work is, as to them, done to his hand, and they may be said to save him a great deal of trouble. Yet, after all, the devil has still a great deal of business upon his hands, and as well himself as all his legions find themselves a full employment in disturbing the world and opposing the glory and kingdom of their great superior, whose kingdom it is their whole business, however vain in its end, to overthrow and destroy, if they were able, or at least to endeavour it. This being the case, it follows, of course, that the general mischiefs of mankind, as well national and public as family mischiefs, and even personal, except as before excepted, lie all still at the devil's door, as much as ever. Let his advocates bring him off of it, if they can, and this brings us back again to the manner of the devil's management, and the way of his working by human agents, or, if you will, the way of human devils, working in affairs of low life, such as we call divination, sorcery, black art, necromancy, and the like, all which I take to consist of two material parts, and both very necessary for us to be rightly informed of. 1. The part which Satan by himself or his inferior devils empowers such people to do, as he is in confederacy with here on earth, to whom he may be said, like the master of an opera or comedy, to give their parts to act, and to qualify them to act it, whether he obliges them to a rehearsal in his presence, to try their talents, and see that they are capable of performing, that indeed I have not inquired into. 2. That part which these empowered people do volunteer, or beyond their commission, to show their diligence in the service of their new master, and either one, to bring grist to their own mill, and make their market of their employment in the best manner they can, or 2, to gain applause, be admired, wondered at, and applauded, as if they were 10 times more devils than really they are. In a word, the matter consists of what the devil does by the help of these people, and what they do in his name without him. The devil is sometimes cheated in his own business. There are pretenders to witchcraft and black art, who Satan never made any bargain with, but who he connives at, because at least they do his cause no harm, though their business is rather to get money than to render him any service, of which I gave you a remarkable instance before. But to go back to his real agents, of which I reckon two: 1, those who act by direction and confederacy, as I have said already many do; 2, those whom he acts in and by, and they perhaps know it not, of which sort history gives us plenty of examples, from Machiavel's first disciple to the famous Cardinal Alberoni, and even to some more modern than his eminence, of whom I can say no more till farther occasion offers. 1. Those who act by immediate direction of the devil, and in confederacy with him. These are such as I mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, whose arts are truly black, because really infernal. It will be very hard to decide the dispute between those who really act thus in confederacy with the devil, and those who only pretend to it, so I shall leave that dispute where I find it, but that there are, or at least have been, a set of people in the world who really are of his acquaintance, and very intimate with him, and though, as I have said, he has much altered his schemes and changed hands of late, yet that there are such people perhaps of all sorts, and that the devil keeps up his correspondence with them, I must not venture to deny that part. lest I bring upon me the whole posse of the conjuring and bewitching crew, male and female, and they should mob me for pretending to deny them the honour of dealing with the devil, which they are so exceeding willing to have the fame of. Not that I am hereby obliged to believe all the strange things the witches and wizards who have been allowed to be such, nay, who have been hanged for it, have said of themselves, nay, that they have confessed of themselves even at the gallows. And if I come to have an occasion to speak freely of the matter, I may perhaps convince you that the devil's possessing power is much lessened of late, and that he either is limited and his fetter shortened more than it has been, or that he does not find the old way, as I said before, so fit for his purpose as he did formerly, and therefore takes other measures. But I must adjourn that to a time and place by itself. But we are told that there are another sort of people, and perhaps a great many of them too, in whom and by whom the devil really acts, and they know it not. It would take up a great deal of time and room, too much for this place, so near the close of this work, to describe and mark out the involuntary devils which there are in the world, of whom it may be truly said that really the devil is in them, and they know it not. Now, though the devil is cunning and managing, and can be very silent where he finds it for his interest not to be known, yet it is very hard for him to conceal himself, and to give so little disturbance in the house, as that the family should not know who lodged in it. Yet I say the devil is so subtle and so mischievous an agent, that he uses all manner of methods and craft to reside in such people as he finds for his purpose, whether they will or no, and which is more, whether they know it or no. And let none of my readers be angry or think themselves ill used when I tell them the devil may be in them, and may act them and by them, and they not know it. For I must add, it may perhaps be one of the greatest pieces of human wisdom in the world for a man to know when the devil is in him, and when not, when he is a tool and agent of hell, and when he is not, in a word, when he is doing the devil's work and under his direction, and when not. It is true this is a very weighty point, and might deserve to be handled in a more serious way than I seem to be talking in all this book, but give me leave to talk of things my own way, and withal to tell you that there is no part of this work so seemingly ludicrous, but a grave and well weighed mind may make a serious and solid application of it if they please. Nor is there any part of this work in which a clear sight and good sense may not see that the author's design is that they should do so. And as I am now so near the end of my book, I thought it was meet to tell you so, and lead you to it as far as I can. I say 'tis a great part of human wisdom to know when the devil is acting in us and by us, and when not. The next and still greatest part would be to prevent him, put a stop to his progress, bid him go about his business, and let him know he should carry on his designs no farther in that manner, that we will be his tools no longer, in short, to turn him out of doors, and bring a stronger power to take possession. But this indeed is too solid a subject, and too great to begin with here. But now, as to the bare knowing when he is at work with us, I say this, so it is considerable may be done, nor is it so very difficult. For example, you have no more to do but look a little into the microcosm of the soul, and see there how the passions which are the blood, and the affections which are the spirit, move in their particular vessels, how they circulate, and in what temper the pulse beats there, and you may easily see who turns the wheel. If a perfect calm possesses the soul, if peace and temper prevail, and the mind feels no tempests rising, if the affections are regular and exalted to virtuous and sublime objects, the spirits cool, and the mind sedate, the man is in a general rectitude of mind. He may be truly said to be his own man. Heaven shines upon his soul with its benign influences, and he is out of the reach of the evil spirit, for the divine spirit is an influence of peace, all calm and bright, happy and sweet like itself, and tending to everything that is good both present and future. But on the other hand, if at any time the mind is ruffled, if vapours rise, clouds gather, if passions swell the breast, if anger, envy, revenge, hatred, wrath, strife, if these or any of these hover over you, much more if you feel them within you, if the affections are possessed, and the soul hurried down the stream to embrace low and base objects, if those spirits which are the life and enlivening powers of the soul are drawn off to parties, and to be engaged in a vicious and corrupt manner, shooting out wild and wicked desires, and running the man headlong into crime, the case is easily resolved. The man is possessed, the devil is in him, and having taken the fort, or at least the counterscarp and outworks, is making his lodgment to cover and secure himself in his hold, that he may not be dispossessed. Nor can he be easily dispossessed when he has got such hold as this, and 'tis no wonder that being lodged thus upon the outworks of the soul, he continues to sap the foundation of the rest, and by his incessant and furious assaults reduces the man at last to a surrender. If the allegory be not as just and apposite as you would have it be, you may, however, see by it in a full view the state of the man, and how the devil carries on his designs. Nothing is more common, and I believe there are few thinking minds but may reflect upon it in their own compass, than for our passions and affections to flow out of the ordinary channel, the spirits and blood of the soul to be extravasated, the passions grow violent and outrageous, the affections impetuous, corrupt, and violently vicious. Whence does all this proceed? From heaven we can't pretend it comes, if we must not say 'tis the devil. Whose door must it lie at? Pride swells the passions, avarice moves the affections, and what is pride and what is avarice but the devil in the inside of the man? Ay, as personally and really as ever he was in the herd of swine. Let not any man then who is a slave to his passions, or who is chained down to his covetousness, pretend to take it ill when I say he has the devil in him, or that he is a devil. What else can it be? And how comes it to pass that passion and revenge so often dispossess the man of himself as to lead him to commit murder, to lay plots and snares for the life of his enemies, and so to thirst for blood? How comes this but by the devil's putting those spirits of the soul into so violent a ferment, into a fever, that the circulation is precipitated to that degree, and that the man too is precipitated into mischief, and at last into ruin? 'Tis all the devil, though the man does not know it. In like manner, avarice leads him to rob, plunder, and destroy for money, and to commit sometimes the worst of violences to obtain the wicked reward. How many have had their throats cut for their money, have been murdered on the highway or in their beds, for the desire of what they had? It is the same thing in other articles. Every vice is the devil in a man. Lust of rule is the devil of great men, and that ambition is their devil as much as whoring is Father Blank's devil. One has a devil of one class acting him, one another, and every man's reigning vice is a devil to him. Thus the devil has his involuntary instruments, as well as those who act in confederacy with him. He has a very great share in many of us, and acts us, and in us, unknown to ourselves, though we know nothing of it, and indeed though we may not suspect it of ourselves, like Hazael the Assyrian, who, when the prophet told him how he would act the devil upon the poor Israelites, answered with detestation, "Is thy servant a dog that he should do this thing?" And yet he was that dog, and did all those cruel things for all that, the devil acting him, or acting in him, to make him wickeder than ever he thought it was possible for him to be. End of Part 2, Chapter 11b.